Have you ever noticed what happens to a man the moment he starts chasing? His silence breaks. His presence thins. His power bleeds out, not with a shout, but with a whisper of need. He's no longer grounded. He's grasping. And that's when he loses the very thing he was trying to earn. Respect, approval, control. But a Stoic man? He doesn't chase. He studies. He waits. He lets the dust settle and the truth reveal itself. Because when you observe, you're not passive. You're in position. Quiet is not weakness. It's readiness. And in a world full of men sprinting toward validation, the one who watches with calm precision becomes the one they can't touch. This isn't a lesson in arrogance. It's a lesson in restraint. In knowing that your value isn't proven through pursuit, but through poise. If you've ever caught yourself chasing something or someone, this is your wake-up call. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. I see everything. I chase nothing. Let's begin. You'll never look at pursuit the same way again. Number 1. Chasing creates imbalance. Underneath every desperate pursuit is a man who's quietly lost sight of his position. Chasing, whether it's for a woman, validation, or opportunity, creates an invisible hierarchy, and you place yourself beneath. You're no longer leading, you're convincing. And the more you chase, the more you're telling the world you believe what you want is above you. That's a dangerous delusion. A Stoic man doesn't operate like that. He doesn't present himself as a beggar in the marketplace of attention. He presents himself as a mountain, rooted, unmoved, still. Because in that stillness, there's no performance. There's clarity. The moment you start chasing anything external, you've already surrendered your internal center. Your energy is fragmented, your focus is diluted, and your dignity is on the auction block. Seneca once wrote, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." And this truth is sharper now than ever. A man who stretches himself to be noticed, accepted, or desired in every direction will never be valued where it counts. Because true presence, true command, requires conservation of power. Observation is not weakness, it's calibration. And when you observe, you see who is drawn to your gravity, not your grasp. I once watched a man fall apart because he kept chasing a woman who only respected him when he pulled away. The more he pursued, the more she evaporated. The moment he stepped back, not out of spite but self-respect, she returned. Why? Because energy follows position. The one who holds the frame holds the power. The one who chases loses it. The man who observes remains above the fray. He sees who's aligned without bending. He watches behaviors without reacting. And in doing so, he becomes a mystery in a world that overshares and overreaches. He becomes attractive not because he's trying to be, but because he's whole. And wholeness doesn't chase, chooses. So if you feel yourself reaching, proving, pursuing, stop, not because you're giving up, but because you're waking up. Observation is the Stoic's weapon. It doesn't scream, it sees. And the man who sees is already winning. Now, let's talk about why chasing doesn't just weaken your position. It blinds your judgment. Number 2. Chasing destroys clarity. Clarity is not something you stumble upon in the noise of pursuit. It is something revealed in the stillness of observation. That's the brutal truth Stoic men understand, and why they never chase. When you chase anything, be it a relationship, a job, a status, you are no longer evaluating it. You are idealizing it. And when idealization takes over, your perception warps. You stop seeing things for what they are, and start seeing them for what you need them to be. It starts subtly. You meet someone who excites you, impresses you, or simply fills a void. Instead of watching carefully, you begin projecting. You assume compatibility. You excuse red flags. You justify behavior that makes you uneasy. This is not love. This is not wisdom. This is blindness by desire. And the Stoics would call it what it truly is: foolishness. Seneca warned us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. That suffering begins when you let want cloud your reason. The more you want, the less you see. Observation, by contrast, is the act of staying still mentally and emotionally. It's watching without the itch to interfere. It's listening without crafting a response. It's staying seated while everyone else runs in circles. A Stoic man doesn't need to chase because he already understands the nature of what he's looking at. He studies behavior, not charm. He sees through the mask and into the pattern. In our modern world, the ability to sit with what is, rather than chase what might be, is a superpower. And most men have lost it. They scroll, they pursue, they react. They're led by craving, not clarity. That's why true observation is a discipline. It requires you to let go of emotional urgency and return to what Stoicism teaches above all. Perception must be clean. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. The estimate becomes corrupted when you're emotionally invested in the outcome. Chasing makes you overlook the truth. You see someone's surface and call it substance. You see attention and call it connection. But when you stop chasing, when you start observing, what's unclear becomes undeniable. You begin to notice what people say when they don't know you're watching. You see what they choose when no one is keeping score. Observation brings truth to the surface quietly, steadily, without force. And here's the psychological depth Stoic men live by. Humans don't reveal themselves under pursuit. They reveal themselves in comfort, in quiet, in pattern. This is why the observer sees further than the runner. He notices micro-expressions. He senses hidden motives. He remembers what others forget, not because he's paranoid, but because he's awake. So, the next time you feel the urge to chase, stop. That's your signal not to advance, but to retreat into silence, into study, into watchfulness. Let the world come to you. Let people reveal themselves not through your force, but through their nature. That's the Stoic way. And that's how you preserve clarity in a world designed to keep you blind. Next, we'll uncover how chasing doesn't just distort your clarity, it erodes your power. And the cost of that erosion is far higher than you think. Number 3. Chasing attracts manipulators. When a man begins chasing whether it's love, validation, or attention, he exposes himself to the most dangerous kind of trap. It's not just about lowering your worth. It's about inviting those who thrive on control. And manipulators, especially emotional ones, have a radar for desperation. The more effort you pour into winning them over, the more they twist it into a game they control, not because they're interested in you, but because your eagerness feeds their ego. It confirms something for them, that they can lead, you'll follow. They can disappear and you'll come running. This isn't attraction. It's exploitation disguised as chemistry. And what makes it worse is that most men don't realize they're being used until they've already given away their time, energy, and emotional integrity. They'll call it love, or loyalty, or pursuit. But what it really is surrender. A man who chases too hard becomes blind. He starts justifying poor treatment. He sees crumbs and calls it a feast. That's not connection. That's addiction to potential, not reality. Stoicism warns us against this kind of self-betrayal. As Marcus Aurelius said, the nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. When you're always chasing, you're never calm. You're reactive, not sovereign. You're driven by impulse instead of guided by clarity. Manipulators don't want you stable. They want you off balance. They don't want a man who sees clearly. They want a man who sees only them. That's why Stoic men observe. They don't reveal their emotions isoline because they're cold, but because they understand the value of restraint. They watch patterns, not performances. They measure actions, not apologies. And they know. The moment someone senses you'll chase, the dynamic changes forever. There's a psychological term called intermittent reinforcement. It's when a reward is given randomly, not consistently. It's the strongest form of conditioning. Manipulators use this like a weapon. One moment affection, the next withdrawal. One day praise, the next silence. They create a cycle where you're always guessing, always working, always hoping the next moment brings what the last one lacked. But here's the Stoic truth. When someone controls your peace, they control your power. And a Stoic never gives that away. Don't confuse effort with worthiness. The right people never need to be chased. And the ones who do? They're telling you, with their retreat, that they enjoy being pursued more than they enjoy being present. The solution isn't to chase harder. It's to stop, step back, watch, see what remains when the chase ends. That's where the truth lives. And often, it's nowhere near as pretty as the fantasy you've built around it. The world is full of people who will test your center, who will bait you with just enough hope to keep you orbiting their chaos. But the Stoic man doesn't orbit, he anchors. And from that anchor, he sees everything clearly, even the manipulation disguised as intimacy, even the attention that feels good but costs too much. So, if you've ever found yourself stuck in a cycle of chasing someone who only seems to move when you do, pause. Remember who you are. Not a dog chasing a car, but a man rooted in value. And those who cannot meet you there don't deserve to walk beside you. Let's move forward. And next, we'll uncover how chasing doesn't just rob you of your strength, it distorts your clarity. Number 4. Chasing erodes discipline. There's a strange statistic about modern men that's both revealing and depressing. The average man today spends more time checking his phone for replies than he does reflecting on his own direction. That's not connection, it's compulsion. And the more a man chases, the less he builds. The moment you start chasing someone, whether it's a lover, a mentor, or even a dream, you subtly start orbiting them. Their reactions determine your actions. Their attention becomes your reward. Their silence becomes your punishment. And just like that, you've stopped building your own world and started revolving around theirs. This erosion of discipline doesn't happen overnight. It begins with a single moment. A man waiting instead of working, scrolling instead of strengthening, doubting instead of deciding. And the most dangerous part, it feels like effort. It feels like you're doing something. You're sending the message. You're checking in. You're following up. But what you're really doing is abandoning your post. You didn't come this far to be distracted by temporary approval. You didn't endure what you've endured to now become a background character in someone else's script. You're the author, the builder, the anchor. And if she texts back, fine. If she doesn't, you've already won because you never left your path for someone who never asked you to walk with them. Now let's talk about the next reason Stoic men never chase and how clarity, not craving, gives you the upper hand. Number 5. Chasing comes from emptiness. There's a harsh truth that few men want to confront. Chasing doesn't begin with attraction. It begins with lack. A man who chases is not overflowing with purpose or peace. He's running on empty. And rather than turn inward to fill that void with structure, meaning, and responsibility, he looks outward and tries to fill it with validation, approval, or attention. That's not love. That's spiritual desperation dressed up as romance. A man full of vision doesn't chase because he doesn't have to. His presence alone communicates what he stands for. His stillness draws curiosity. His discipline radiates confidence. And his peace. That's what people are drawn to, not his effort, not his noise, but his grounded, unwavering center. The Stoics taught that fulfillment is self-generated. Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that includes mastering your cravings. If you're constantly pursuing someone, checking if they've noticed you, trying to prove your worth, bending your path to fit into theirs, you've already declared your inner emptiness. It doesn't matter how polished your words are, how strategic your moves appear. The energy behind them reveals everything. Chasing is a silent confession. It tells the world, I don't yet believe I am enough. And once you understand that, you no longer need to analyze the other person's response. You don't need to decode their mixed signals. You need to pause and return to yourself. Because the opposite of chasing isn't ignoring, it's becoming. Becoming the kind of man who doesn't crave access. He creates gravity. A man who doesn't beg for attention, he earns respect without asking. When you're full of focus, direction, and principle, your energy repels drama. People know not to waste your time not because you've said it, but because your life shows it. The man who chases is always seeking, is always trying to close the gap. The man who observes, He already knows. He isn't waiting for a reply. He's watching, learning, building. And while others spend their energy running in circles, he sharpens in silence. That's power. So, the next time you feel the urge to chase, stop not because you're weak, but because your energy is too expensive to spend on someone who hasn't even earned your awareness. And if you do feel that craving to chase, that's not a signal to move outward. That's a signal to return inward to the disciplines, to the stillness, to the principles that built you in the first place. The fire doesn't run toward the crowd gathers around the fire. And a Stoic man is that fire. Contained, controlled, but undeniable. Now, let's talk about the final reason why Stoic men never chase, and how patience, not pursuit, protects everything you've built. Number 6. Observation exposes everything. In a world obsessed with reaction, most men forget one of the greatest powers available to them. Stillness. Because in stillness, you see everything. You see what people really value, not by what they say, but by where they show up. You see what they fear by what they avoid, deflect, or mock. And you see their true character not in moments of peace, but in how they handle disappointment, silence, or not getting their way. A man who chases gets distracted by the mask, but a man who observes, he waits for the mask to slip, and it always does. You don't need to interrogate someone to understand them. Just step back. Watch how they treat the waitress. Watch how they respond when the spotlight isn't on them. Pay attention to what they say about others when those people aren't in the room. This isn't paranoia. It's precision. It's Stoic intelligence. Because a Stoic doesn't waste words trying to pull someone's truth out of them. He knows time and patterns will reveal it. Epictetus reminded us, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. But this isn't just about hearing words. It's about watching behavior. A raised voice, a delayed reaction, a deflection, a sudden silence, these are signals. And the man who cultivates the discipline to observe calmly without jumping in, without rescuing, without performing, is the man who will always see the game long before it unfolds. Observation requires strength because it forces you to sit in uncertainty without rushing to control it. But what you gain in that process is clarity. And clarity, once earned, makes you untouchable. When you chase, you invest in a fantasy. But when you observe, you invest in truth. And that truth protects your time, your energy, and your legacy. The Stoic doesn't demand authenticity. He detects it. He doesn't rush intimacy. He lets it reveal itself. So, if you've ever found yourself wondering what is this person's intention, don't ask them, watch them. If they're real, it'll show. If they're not, it'll slip. The man who observes becomes dangerous not because he attacks, but because he understands. And once you understand what someone is, you don't chase. You choose. Now, let's close this out with a reminder that Stoic clarity isn't passive. It's power practiced in silence. Conclusion. Stop chasing. Start standing still with purpose. In a world addicted to noise, drama, and emotional bait, your stillness is not silence. Strategy. Most men lose power trying to prove themselves. But the Stoic man? He builds. He watches. He lets truth emerge without lifting a finger. When you chase, you tell the world you're incomplete. When you observe, you show the world you've already arrived. Marcus Aurelius didn't need to persuade anyone of his worth. He lived it. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to chase attention, love, approval, or anything else that requires you to abandon yourself in the process. You only need to remain unshaken. That is what makes a man unforgettable. So if this message hits something deep, good. That's your edge sharpening. Like this video, subscribe for more hard-hitting Stoic clarity, and drop your commitment in the comments below. I don't chase. I calibrate. Because the man who stops chasing doesn't become invisible. He becomes magnetic. And that, brother, is where your real power begins.